Welcome to The Explainer. You know, some questions are so big, so complex, they span centuries, touching on economics, history, and culture all at once. Today, we're jumping into a work that offers a really fresh look at one of those long-standing debates.
So let's get right to the heart of it. The entire analysis really revolves around this one massive question. And it's a question that thinkers, both inside the Islamic world and out, have been wrestling with for well over 100 years. It's a puzzle that sparks some pretty intense debates.
And for what feels like forever, that conversation has been stuck, right? Pushed into two opposite corners. On one side, you have people saying, look, the problem is internal. It's about culture, it's about mindset. And on the other side, you have folks pointing the finger entirely outward, saying, no, it's all about colonialism and imperialism.
But here's the thing. What if that whole black and white approach is the real problem? What if it's actually stopping us from seeing the full picture? The book we're looking at today basically says, hold on, we have to break out of this dilemma to find any real answers.
And this is where that new perspective really comes into focus. We're talking about Dr. KANBİR's work, which is all about breaking that old, tired debate. It's not just about history, or just economics. It's about weaving them all together to get a much more complete, holistic view of what's going on.
Okay, so here's what I find really fascinating. To even start tackling the problem, the book takes a step back and asks us to think about a word we use all the time, maybe without thinking too much about it: development.
And this is absolutely crucial. The book makes a really sharp distinction. There's economic growth, which, is basically just about the money, about GDP going up. But then there's economic development, and that's a whole different ballgame. We're talking about a holistic idea, about a better quality of life. Are people healthier? Are they getting a good education? That's what true development is. So once we have this bigger, more human definition of development, the book can finally start to build its case. And it does it by offering a really balanced diagnosis, one that refuses to just point fingers in one direction. First, it looks inward, and it's pretty brave about it. It digs into history to trace how a vibrant tradition of independent reasoning, called ijtihad, started to fade. It connects the dots between these big intellectual shifts and periods where things just stalled out, both socially and economically.
But, and this is key, it's not a one-sided story. The book then pivots to look at the massive, devastating blows that came from the outside. We're talking about huge historical events, the Crusades, the Mongol invasions, and then, of course, the eras of colonialism and imperialism. The analysis shows how these events didn't just cause temporary damage, they weakened the very foundations of institutions and economies for generations.
All right, so we have this really deep, two-sided diagnosis. But the book doesn't just stop at explaining the problem. This next part is one of its most original contributions. It actually gives us new tools to measure what's really going on. So first, you've probably heard of the Human Development Index, the HDI, right? Well, the book takes that idea and gives it a crucial upgrade. It adds something called the Gini coefficient, which is just a way of measuring income inequality. The result? A new index that doesn't just tell you how a country is doing on average, but how fair the system is. It shows you who's really benefiting from any growth.
And then there's this, and it's a real game changer. Drawing from his own doctoral research, Dr. KANBİR creates something totally new: the Islamic Development Index, or IDI. Now this is fascinating. Instead of just measuring money or material wealth, it measures how well a country aligns with a set of core human and Islamic values. It completely reframes the question of what progress even means.
So you've got the deep dive diagnosis, you've got these brand new tools for measurement. So what's the bottom line? Where does all of this lead? Well, the book wraps up by laying out a real roadmap for the future.
And the final message is incredibly powerful. As Dr. KANBİR puts it, this solution isn't some impossible choice between the past and the West. Instead, it's about rebuilding. It's about creating a new understanding of development built on things we can all agree on: rationality, freedom, the rule of law, and universal human values.
And that really leaves us with the big final question, doesn't it? This whole work isn't just an academic exercise or a look back at history. It's an intellectual roadmap. The real challenge, and the question it leaves for all of us, is how do we take this map and actually use it to build a better, more just future, starting today?